Well, good afternoon. Thank you for being here with us. And we are happy to announce the House Republicans' Northstar Comeback Budget Plan. Our intent is to make Minnesota more affordable. So this plan is focused. It's a practical package built around one goal. Again, to make Minnesota more affordable. We want to make government work and getting our economy working again. Right-sizing the government is what is needed at this time here in the state. Our proposals reflect what we're hearing from Minnesotans across the state. There's something in this plan for every family. At the top of our agenda will be protecting those family budgets. Right now, Minnesotans are feeling squeezed from every direction: groceries, childcare, housing, insurance, energy. When you think about it, it's the basics, and they just keep getting more expensive. Families are actually working harder, but they're falling further behind. And we hear them. That's why this plan responds directly to the reality that so many of us are living today. We're putting real money back into people's pockets by way of the largest tax cut proposal in state history. This is a $3.8 billion tax cut proposal. It includes one-time property tax relief. It includes ending the taxes on tips and overtime, lowering our child care costs, cutting car tab fees, and delivering hundreds of millions of dollars to Minnesota schools at no cost to taxpayers or to the state through scholarship granting organizations. We're also focused on making government actually work. And that starts with finally passing a strong Office of Inspector General bill. That'll crack down on fraud and stop billions of taxpayer dollars from being wasted. And we're advancing common sense policies that Minnesotans broadly support. Those include modernizing our IT systems, expanding safe schools funding so every student in Minnesota can learn in a secure environment. We're looking at restoring cooperation between local and federal law enforcement so violent criminals are removed from our communities, protecting girls' sports, and making sure Minnesota conforms to federal Medicaid changes so we don't lose crucial funding for vulnerable residents. We're also taking steps to make Minnesota more competitive and create a world-class economy so that those who want to live, work, and create jobs here actually can. That means incentivizing research and development, supporting our farmers, and creating an environment where businesses can grow and invest here in our great state of Minnesota. This is a balanced, practical plan focused on results. Many of these proposals have bipartisan support already and can pass this year. We're ready to get to work, and we're calling on our Democrat colleagues to work with us to deliver these solutions to Minnesotans. With that, I'll turn it over to Leader Harry Niska for additional details.
Thank you, Speaker Demuth. What Speaker Demuth laid out is a clear, focused plan that's built on three simple priorities, our House Republican priorities: protecting family budgets, making government work, and building a world-class economy. And these aren't partisan ideas, they're common sense ideas. A lot of them have bipartisan support. So Minnesotans are wondering, why haven't we gotten anything done on these? And the answer is simple. Up until now, as we've gone through session, House Democrats have spent this entire session blocking, delaying, and opposing these common sense solutions for Minnesota policy because they're more interested in talking about things we don't have control over here at the state. They're more interested in talking about things that are happening in Washington, D.C. than about what we should do and can do here in Minnesota state government for Minnesotans. We have 38 days left. And so far, when given the opportunity to make progress for Minnesota families, Democrats have chosen obstruction over action time and time again. Let's start with family budgets. Minnesotans are getting crushed right now between groceries, childcare, housing, energy, insurance. Costs are up across the board. And we propose real relief: lower car tab fees, no taxes on tips and overtime, childcare relief, lower health care costs, and Democrats have opposed those proposals over and over again, blocking them in committee. Second, making government work. Minnesotans have watched billions of our tax dollars lost to waste and fraud, and they want accountability. But over and over again, Democrats have opposed real solutions. Our Fraud Isn't Free bill, our Office of Inspector General bill. Minnesotans want a real independent Office of Inspector General that has teeth. Democrats have stalled it, blocked it, refused to act. They allowed it to move forward. We expect, Minnesotans expect that we're going to have a real Office of Inspector General bill, and House Republicans are going to continue working for that. And finally, building a world-class economy means lowering costs, supporting innovation, and making it easier for businesses of all sizes to invest and grow in Minnesota. But Democrats have continued to double down on mandates, higher taxes, and policies that make it harder to live, work, and do business here. What's so frustrating is that we know there are bipartisan support for many of our proposals, but Democrats have continued to block them over and over again in committee. Minnesotans don't care about political games. They want to be able to afford their lives, and they want a government that works for them. House Republicans are here. We're ready. We're ready to work. We have a plan. We have ideas. We can make Minnesota more affordable. We can make government less expensive for Minnesotans. We just need Democrats to come with us, and we're happy to take questions.
Is the dependent care with the child care, the governor obviously had a proposal on that. Are you proposing something similar? Do you think his is enough, or just tell us about that?
Yeah, I'm not sure about the specifics on that one.
The dependent care credit is for child care, right? That one's different than the child tax credit.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think it might be.
Yeah, I was just curious, because one of the governor's, his top proposal was the child care credit, child care expenses. So I'm just wondering if that's what dependent care credit is.
We are looking at all of the things that'll make things more affordable for the family budgets, really overall, when we're looking at everything. That is a proposal that we're looking at. Does it align directly with what the governor has right now? No. Not exactly, but those are the conversations that have to take place. We can look at that, but we also have to make sure car tab fees, the fraud and the waste that goes in. By modernizing our IT systems, that actually protects and lowers the rate of fraud, which protects all of our dollars. So it's a broader approach. One of the other things I want to make sure that you're able to pick up on is the scholarship granting organizations. That's the $1,700 that actually is available to all schools as we go forward. No cost to the state, no cost. It's an option that we could use. The governor actually could make that happen right now. It would go to the benefit of our schools. I've talked to school superintendents that would love to have access to those dollars. Right now, Minnesotans can opt into that, but we'd have to send our dollars out of state. 90% of our kids go to public schools, so it's not just any type of thing to funnel it to other areas. Most of it would go to public schools. Other questions?
Has anybody contemplated a dollar amount on the IT modernization? Have you had discussions about that? Because I know there's talk about short-term and long-term for that.
Yeah, those discussions are going forward. We did put some dollars forward last year. Chair Torkelson, would you like to talk about where you're at on it right now? Okay, we'll let Chair Torkelson, Ways and Means, give you a little bit more.
I've been working hard on the IT modernization work. I think it's very important. I think it's one of the best things we can do to address fraud. How can we address fraud if we don't have the tools in the hands of the people that need those tools to really examine what's going on with state spending? This goes all the way down to the county level. I've been meeting regularly with the counties, I've been meeting regularly with Minute. It's going to be a two-pronged approach, some money up front to make sure that the ongoing issues that are currently need a little more funding get addressed. We don't have an exact dollar amount, but we're thinking maybe in the $15 million range just to keep things operating in the near term. And then establishing a longer-term fund that would set aside money for technology modernization on an ongoing basis and have it focused on technology modernization. We've spent a lot of money, 23, 24, $200 million that didn't get the job done because it wasn't focused. So we need to focus on the job at hand, get good tools in the hands of the people that need them so that social workers in counties across Minnesota can do the work they want to do instead of sitting in front of a green screen with the wheel of death and constantly typing in the same address over and over.
And you think there are federal matching dollars for some of the
Many-
long-term?
Many of these investments qualify for federal matching dollars currently, up to a 90-10, 90% from the feds, 10% from the state. For many of these efforts, if we get them in the pipeline and rolling sooner rather than later.
Will you introduce legislation on this, and do you have like a Democratic co-sponsor on it?
We have, I have a bill in my own committee that was just introduced this week. Senator Wickland on the Senate side is working on the same issue. She has her own bill, but she's also has a copy of my bill. I'm not sure if she's dropped it yet. We're negotiating. We don't have all the details put together yet. It's surprisingly challenging to get good, solid numbers, but we're putting pressure on the departments, on DHS, and on the Children Family DCYF, the Children and Families Department, to get a good handle on what the needs really are. But some of it is kind of unknown because this technology is changing so fast that the needs in the future are much harder to put a dollar amount on. That's why setting up a fund that's available in the future to fund these efforts at technology modernization is so important.
Somebody speak to the Medicaid conformity piece a little bit more in detail, what that.
What specifically?
Just like, I mean,
Yep.
just any more detail on that.
Yeah, so HR 1 had imposed a number of requirements on states that Minnesota is out of line on, whether we're talking about work requirements, things like that. There have been productive conversations with the administration about conformity. I think there's general understanding that we don't want to just lose billions of dollars of federal funding, that we need to make sure that our Medicaid standards are in line with the federal standards so we don't lose that money. But that's a high priority for Republicans to make sure that we get that done this year. You know, the length of the work requirements, that's kind of the thing where there's going to be, I think, some discussion. I hope that there's, you know, that's really where the rub is, that there is genuine bipartisan support for the idea that we need to go ahead and comply with federal law instead of trying to, you know, just stick it to the administration, which unfortunately has been a little bit too much of the rhetoric that we've heard around this place, that Democrats just want to fight the administration no matter what the cost is to Minnesota or Minnesotans. That's been what's really frustrating, is that kind of rhetoric. We got to get down to business and just make sure that Minnesota government works for Minnesotans, regardless of how people feel about, you know, who the president is and what the administration is doing, what things that are out of our control.
Can someone provide an update on the OIG bill, where that is, and is that working group still meeting?
So, Representative Jim Nash, I'm Chair of State Government Finance. After 4 attempts to get it out of committee, we got it out of committee. It then went to Judiciary, and it now is in possession of Ways and Means. An updated fiscal note is coming forward. I think we are now in possession of that. So it's going to come down to where our spending priorities, and that's very top of the list for us. And then we'll get it to the floor, hopefully, and then it'll have to match up with the Senate as to what's going on there. The working group is continuing. We did not meet during our break, but we'll be meeting again very soon to talk about the differences, how to come into agreement with that. But credit to the Senate, in the working group, we talked about what are the priorities, what are we looking at making changes over here in the House, and tacitly has gotten some agreement on what the bill looks like as it sits today in Ways and Means.
Which is that it still has the law enforcement provision?
Still has law enforcement and still has the appointment piece that came out of the Senate and was a must-have for us in the House Republican caucus.
It's important that it have real independence from the governor. It's important that it have law enforcement. And it's important that we match up to a place where the working group is on board to a point where we know if we pass it out of the House, that version is going to pass through the Senate, because we don't want this caught up in some kind of procedural game where, you know, House Democrats pretend like they support something and Senate Democrats kill it or something like that. We need to make sure that what we pass out of the House is something that can be quickly passed through the Senate, and there are no procedural shenanigans, you know, we've seen a lot from the administration, from House Democrats, kind of pretending to be in favor of the concept while undercutting the progress of it. We just want to make sure that something like that doesn't happen and prevent this from getting across the finish line. So whatever passes out of the House, we want to be confident that that version is going to be able to pass out of the Senate, go to the governor, and the governor is going to sign it.
There are two bills moving in both the House and Senate, and they both have bipartisan co-authors on regulating prediction markets. I'm wondering if the caucus has a position on that. Do you think that there should be some guardrails around, betting on, is Speaker Dameth going to do X or Y, or is Iran going to strike the United States?
Yeah, I would say the concern I have with that bill and with a number of other bills is that we do think that procedural deadlines matter, and there are a number, that's one of several bills that folks have come to us with very late in the process. And so, those have not met deadlines in the House, and we take those deadlines pretty seriously.
Dameth or Leader Niska, could you share your stance, if you have one, on the NDA bill? It was heard in Judiciary this morning, that says, local officials should.
I mean, I would say the same thing I said to, just previously. That was a bill that also did not meet committee deadlines in the House. And so, we're not just handing out rules waivers for free around this place. That's happened a little bit too much before. Things have to move. We've made a priority of single subject bills and moving them through the process according to the deadlines, and that one didn't meet deadlines either.
The items that you've mentioned today as part of the Northstar comeback, have these all been codified in legislation this session, and have they, passed through committee, have they been debated?
So most of these are finance items that still have not, the finance deadline still has not passed. And so there are some that are still being worked on, and a number of them that have been in bills that have met deadlines. So there's a lot of provisions there. We can get back to you on specifics if you want to talk about specifics on that.
That 3.8, I think it was $3.8 billion figure, is that just like in this particular 1 year of budget cycle or a few years? How do you reach that tally?
I will, Paul Torkelson again, Ways and Means Chair. We have identified a number of resources that are available. I didn't bring the list with me, but for instance, projects that are funded but aren't going to happen, such as the train to Duluth and the Blue Line, $70 million left over from paid family medical leave. And then also, if you look closely at the governor's budget, he actually does recognize that there will be savings from fraud prevention. So there's millions of dollars there. So there are funds available if we can agree on repurposing those funds. And that's how this plan would work. We would have to have that agreement to repurpose funds that have been committed but have not been spent. And in many cases, they've been committed to things that just aren't going to happen.
Any other questions for us?
What's this property tax refund? What is the legislation here, and what can the state do about property taxes?
Yeah, it's a one-time $1 billion rebate to coincide with, to give relief to Minnesotans who've been hit with a $1 billion property tax hike. So it's not mandating something on locals for property taxes. It's a rebate back to Minnesotans who are paying higher property taxes as a result of policy changes made at the state the last few years that have pushed more and more cost, more and more mandates down to local governments. That's pushed up. Minnesotans all over the place are getting hit with a big sticker shock. So we're giving $1 billion back to Minnesotans to soften the blow of those property tax hikes that were the result of the DFL trifecta in 23 and 24.
How is it determined who gets these rebates?
I'll get back to you on the specifics on that bill, but we do have a bill introduced on that.
That bill also will allow for local governments to make the changes that they need to as time goes forward too. It won't negatively impact local governments. This would go back to the property tax payers. Yeah. Any other questions? Thanks for being with us.